Drink beer, it's good for you. I'm empty-handed and I'm feeling blue, and I'm gonna drink till the day that I die.
Hello and welcome to the video. This is the third video in this series. If you haven't seen the other two, then I'd certainly recommend that you watch the introduction the first, because it gives you lots of information about how the testing is done and also my thoughts in general about judging. Okay, I'm not going to prattle on any further, let's get on with the beer itself. Okay, so first up is a favourite low alcohol tipple of mine, and this is what I call the Mild Man Ale, or in the video I had it as English Mild Ale. You can see that the judges particularly appreciated this one and gave it a very nice score overall of 87 out of 100. Tasting notes included comments like that this is full bodied, it tastes like a higher alcohol ale, it's smooth, crisp, and has several nice sweet flavour notes. Next up we have the Belgian Oil Stout, and this is something that I've been enjoying quite a lot recently. I've still got it on tap and I'm just waiting for that to finish so that I can actually put the breakfast stout in its place. Again, you can see that the judges were quite impressed with this one, giving it a pretty decent score, and tasting notes on this one included coffee, hints of chocolate, very moorish, very silky, and it has a very full body. What I have found with this one is that despite the fact that this has got quite a full body, and of course it has the characteristics of a rather large stout, it is actually rather sessionable, and I've found myself on evenings on occasion just drinking this. I can really get into this, and if you're someone who really appreciates stouts, give this a shot. I don't think you'll be disappointed at all. So next up we have the star of the summer. Well, maybe not, but certainly the star of the summer at my house at least, because this one went down a storm at any event that I had. People really just got into this. It was nice, easy drinking beer with a nice amount of hops just thrown in. As you can see from the scores here, our judges definitely agreed. Tasting notes were as follows: fresh, fruity, great barbecue beer, very clean. The thing that I particularly like about this beer is it doesn't get boring. It's very much a beer you could easily drink all afternoon, no problem at all. Plenty of really varied hop flavour in it, just to keep you going and interested. Next up is the Drunk Monk ABBEY Ale, and this is actually one of the beers that I produced out of a split wort brew that I put into a video not so long ago. As you can see, this one also got fairly respectable scores, but I think it was one of those beers that you're either going to like this or you're not. It's not something that most people are going to enjoy like the previous beers we've had here. Personally, I really like Belgian styles, and anything ABBEY and sweet with those candy sugar flavours I really appreciate. But of course it's not for everyone, and I think the scores that you see here reflect that. Tasting notes for this beer are as follows: rum, plum, spicy and sweet. Next up we have the All Black New Zealand IPA. And you know, it's funny really, because years and years ago the sort of flavours that you get from New Zealand hops would be the ones that we would say, ah yeah, you've done something wrong there mate, sorry about that. So really for me it's kind of tricky when it comes to these fruity flavours that you get from New Zealand hops, because you know, I do associate it with those times. That's not to say that I don't enjoy it, because I really do, but it still doesn't sit completely in my mouth as something that I feel relaxed in drinking. I know it's strange to say it, but it just feels a little wrong. And as you can see from the judges' scores here, it's fairly good score, but to be honest, you'd really need to understand where this has come from, because there were people on the judges' table that scored this incredibly high, and some that scored it much lower, and of course these are the average scores. So I thought I'd point that out so you understood completely what was going on here. I guess some felt like I did, and others really couldn't care about it and just gave it the score they felt it deserved. So there you go. So tasting notes on this one are as follows. Fruity, very fruity, excessively fruity, rich, hoppy. I think you get the general idea. Okay, so next up we have the honey ale. And you know, a lot of people love the idea of honey ales, in the same way that they really love the idea and the romance behind mead. The problem is, when it comes to tasting it, not everyone actually enjoys it in beer. Personally, I really like a honey ale, but I have to say it's not something that I could drink too many of. I guess one or two and that's about it, and that seems to be consistent with a lot of people that do appreciate it. But this is a great thing to break out, particularly in the summer. As you can see, this one got some pretty decent scores, and the judges certainly really appreciated that fantastic honey aroma that came from this particular beer. Tasting notes for this one are as follows. Very nice clean honey taste, amazing aroma. Not something I could drink much of, but tasty all the same. Okay, next up we have the Belgian TRIPEL. Now this is something that I brew pretty regularly, pretty much every year actually, and it's something that I like to have conditioning for at least 6 to 7 months. This particular one was conditioned for about 8 months. This is another one of those beers that really drew divisions in our judges. There were some absolutely loved it. Personally, I absolutely love these, but others, yeah, not so impressed, not really for them. You know, this is the thing with beer, there's so many different types and not all of them are for everyone. Tasting notes from our judges on this one are as follows. Sweet, complex taste, lovely smell, very spicy and peppery at the finish. Now of course everyone has their own palate and their own interpretation of flavour. Personally I wouldn't say this is very peppery or very spicy, but it's certainly there. But it's something that I particularly enjoy about this one, and perhaps you will too. If not, give it a wide berth. Next up we have the Fruit Shake IPA, and this is the style which is known as the Milkshake IPA. And this has been incredibly popular, particularly with people that are really into IPA. So I found that whenever I served this as a beer at the house, people started asking for more. It didn't last very long. I have to say that it felt rather hard to give the last remaining bottles to my judges, but I did it anyway. Hey, I can always brew it again. And I certainly will. As you can see, this beer got a very respectable score, and tasting notes were as follows. Fruity, hoppy, sweet, tasty, fantastic aroma. Staying on the hoppy theme, next up we have the India Pale Lager. And I have to be honest, usually I don't brew lagers at all, but I'm really glad that I brewed this one. I combined hop tea with dry hopping, and this gave an amazing result. I was very happy with the sheer amount of different taste notes that this gave the beer. As you can no doubt see from the scores here, my judges really lapped this up also. They gave the following tasting notes. Great hop combination, very clean, hoppy, very drinkable, nice dry finish. If you're not in general a fan of lagers, but you do like IPAs, then definitely give this a whirl. It really brings all of those lovely hop flavours right to the forefront. Next up we have the Berliner Weisse, and this is basically a German wheat sour beer. which I have to say is not something that I've brewed particularly before, but I did have help from another brewer on this one, and I'm really glad that we did this because I found this to be an excellent summer beer. Some of the judges present actually claimed not to like sour beers, but found this to be very palatable indeed, and I guess I would put myself in that category also. This one got some very respectable scores, and I think they would have been a bit higher had one of the judges not been particularly keen. Here are the tasting notes as follows. Simple yet complex underneath. Very refreshing. Acidic yet pleasantly sharp aftertaste. Thirst quenching yet funky. And last but certainly by no means least, the Juicy IPA. This is certainly a very fruity beer, and it has a medium body, and I've found that the majority of people really enjoy this, but you do need to enjoy this style of beer, which is really leaning towards a New England IPA. There were some fairly mixed opinions about this one actually, and this is reflected in the scores, which, had everyone liked it, would have been far higher. Certainly there were some very high scores on this one from certain judges. Here are the tasting notes as follows. Nice bite and beautiful hop taste. Medium body, fruity and very nice. So there you have it. That's the end of this beer brew tasting video 3. You will note that there's a few more beers in this one, and that's because really I didn't have time to make a video before now, and this is actually 2 tasting sessions in one. So sorry about that, but we got there in the end, hey. I do hope that all of you have found this very interesting and useful for planning your future brews that incorporate my recipes. There will be further videos like this in the future that will cover the beers that I've brewed after these. It's also worth pointing out that there are still some beers that are missing from the past, and that is simply because I haven't actually taken them out of bulk storage yet and put them into bottles or kegs. But watch this space and I will cover those in a tasting video when they become available soon. So if you did like this video, then please do go ahead and like it on YouTube. This really helps me out and allows the videos to be seen by a wider audience on YouTube. I've got a lot of videos in the pipeline for the future, so if you're interested in seeing what I've got coming up, then please subscribe for future content. If you have any questions on anything that I've covered in this video or in others, or anything to do with brewing in general, then please do not hesitate to get in touch. I'm more than happy to help. Until then, happy brewing!